Hi, lovelies. How are you guys doing? I hope you guys are good. I'm good as well. Sorry, it's been a minute, but my world is coming, is really slowing down, and I think I'm beginning to get my balance and my rhythm back. But yeah, in another news, you guys, I'm slowly coming out of my reading slump, and that makes me so glad. It makes me so happy. My heart is full. My heart is full because for almost a month and a half, it just felt like I was not committing a sin, but like I wasn't doing something right. Something fell off. And being able to just pick a book and read at a normal pace and just find my reading, it makes so much sense. I just feel like me better. So yeah, that's a good news. And in another news, so yeah, for today, you guys, we'll be talking and reviewing a book. I don't know. I don't think the word review is what I would love to call it. I just want to talk about it. That's just it. Let's just talk about this book. The funny thing is, this book wasn't the book I intended to talk about today. The book that I intended to talk about was the book thief, and I've mentioned it like 2 or 3 episodes before that I would love to talk about it and all of that, and that was the book that I had in my heart and in my head. I'd even said structuring it, trying to just how I'll come, bring it down, structure it together, the things I would love to particularly talk about. And when I picked this book, you guys, just like I think I hadn't even gotten to half of the book, I knew that I needed to talk about this book. In fact, I made sure that I tried my best to finish it in like 2 days. But I got busy by the second day and I was able to finish it by the third day when I picked the book. You guys remember the book that I told you that I got that I got a birthday present from my sister? Yeah, this is the book. I've had it since April that I got it, and I needed to be in a proper headspace, in the right headspace for the book. That's why I decided not to read it. Knowing the type of genre that it was, I knew that books like this, I need to be in this kind of space, or in this type of headspace, or for my head to be in this type of position, like for me to be able to really grasp and for me to feel the feelings that comes from books like this, or for me to really immerse myself in the emotions that they do evoke, and just for me to just lost myself in the world that this book builds for me. And you guys, I was not disappointed. I really was not. So the title of the book we're talking about today is titled "As Long as the Lemon Tree Grows" by Zulfa Katal. I really hope I'm pronouncing it well. I tried to find pronunciation for it online. I really could not find it, and just said that okay, let me just use my small understanding of how Arabic words do sound to pronounce it. I really apologize if that's the wrong pronunciation. So yes, it's by she is Syrian, and but I think you could call her Syrian Canadian. She's of the Syrian descent, and but she's a Canadian citizen. So yeah, as long as the lemon tree grows is an historical war fiction, and it is based in Syria. You guys, there is so much. I hope we have enough time to at least cover some really major things. I really hope so. So let's get right into it. First things first, for us to really understand or just really get the grasp of what of the book, we'll just talk about most obviously it's a war fiction, and it's a war that is dated or that happened in Syria. While I was even reading it at first, I assumed self that it was all the style of war stories that when you read some war stories or historical fictions, they happened in the 80s, in the 90s, and all of that. But the war really officially broke out in March 2011. The reason why I use the word officially is because according to research and all of that, Syria is was under, yeah, I think was is the word, is the this thing to use, was under an authoritative dictatorship kind of government by Bashar al-Assad. But he inherited power from his father Hafiz al-Assad, and Hafiz had been in, had been had been a dictatorship over Syria spanning decades, I think 20 or 30 years before. So, and his son Bashar inherited power from him. And now I think around that March 2011, there was an uprising happening in Northern Africa and in the Middle East. I think Arab offspring, or yeah, that was what it was called. And dictatorship, how dictatorship and an authoritarian government always is. There's stringent rules, no freedom, the type that impedes on the civilians' natural human rights and all of those. You get the picture. And so when that uprising started, I think the people decided that, okay, you know what, let's start protesting peacefully. The word peacefully, they started protesting peacefully, that, oh, we want basic human rights, this freedom, just for things for us to live right, is what any civilian or anyone really asks for from their government. And how governments like that, how they responded in kind with violence. And I think what really tipped the what really tipped the art was when I think some teens, I wouldn't call them rebellious teens according to research, they had, they made graffiti paintings, anti dictatorship government graffiti paintings on the wall rather. And the Syrian government took them, punished them, tortured them, and killed them. I think that was what just tipped it over, that we just wanted easy life, we wanted things to be easy. We didn't want to fight or all of those. And see, a peaceful protest became ended up being a full-blown civil war, and peaceful protesters became rebels, and they had to take up wars. And Syrian government started using chemicals, bombs, and the likes on its own citizens. And when war breaks out like that, it's like when the food pours down on the sand or on the floor, you find flies, you find ants, you find insects dissecting, trying to get their own share. And you have other countries. That was what happened in this case. You have Russia and Iran backing the Syrian government. You have other countries like Turkey. Everyone wants their share of the war. And Islamic terrorist groups to taking advantage of the state of the economy and the country, taking advantage. So everything just became mangled up. How it turned out to be, how a country becomes desolate, it becomes a refugee camp. There is no Everyone is running helter skelter. You don't know when you will die, you don't know when you will live. And the effect of this war on citizens, and that is the case. And one of the citizen, or yeah, the main character, then we are introduced to Salama, who is the main character. So before we really go into it, I would love us to explore some of the themes in this book. One of the major themes, or the first thing that just hit me right in the face the moment I started reading, was war and the psychological toll on a psychological effect on the casualties of war, those that are victims of war. One thing about this book that makes it unique and makes it special compared to other historical fiction that I've read, most times the same somber, melancholic, nostalgic feelings that you get from an historical fiction, a war themed historical fiction, is the same type you will get from this book. It almost seems similar. At first, when I started reading it, it felt ordinary. In fact, nothing, there wasn't anything out of place. There really wasn't anything out of place until I started to get to the fifth or the fourth chapter. And this writer, this author, I would have loved to call her name, but I'm scared I'm not calling it right. And she really explored the psychological like what the psychological slash mental effect of this kind of trauma, of how it affects a person. When you read war fictions, at least all the ones that I have read, I haven't come across one that spins the story in this manner. Yes, they show us of the deaths, they show us the casualties of the victims, how they try to escape, but no one really talks about, like, it's not really, they don't go deep down, or it's not a theme that is explored. Yes, that is explored in this style of books, and it is one of the things I feel like should be. I haven't read this book. At some point I even tried to check if she was a psychologist, that for her to really capture it in this manner, this psychological and mental aspect, it she had to have had maybe, an experience, or of somewhat, or even personal experience. But having read that bio, I realized that she wasn't born in Syria. I think she just has parents that were Syrians. I think she was born in Dubai or thereabouts. So I was really surprised for her to capture it in this manner, even for me to understand this mental or adverse effects, because I've been reading psychological books and watching psychological movies now for as long as I can remember. And when you're talking about multiple personalities, schizophrenia, that word keeps, I'm sorry, I know that I mispronounced it, but you get it. Or all of those mental disorders that comes from having suffered really major life changing traumas. And in a way, because also I find myself really interested in psychology, so I can almost understand, or I'm able to grasp the concept that she's trying to portray with psychology. And when we started, we start with Salama is the main character here. She is an 18-year-old girl, but she was a pharmaceutical student. She was a pharmaceutical student studying, in the school of pharmacy. Let's call it school of pharmacy. Yeah, they even mentioned the name, but I can't seem to remember. The school of pharmacy before the war broke out. Before war broke out, and she ended having to be a doctor who amputates, sews, performs major surgeries on casualties of war, because those that should have been available, the doctors that would have or should have been available, have been killed, have been bombed, so there really isn't anyone. So she has to step up. Imagine being in your second year in the school of pharmacy, just trying to cram drugs, adverse effects, and or just getting to know the human anatomy, and graduating oh graduating to become someone who performs major surgeries. You're performing amputation, you are doing perforations, you are you're opening up the stomach, the brain, you're performing major, I think, general surgery. Kind, the way it was portrayed or explained, it seemed it was giving general surgery kind of something. And having to perform all of those surgery because of the state, and the state of the country and the extent of the war, it just really breaks your heart. You don't even have to have witnessed it or even seen it being reported for you to read stories like that and not feel heartbroken in a way. And the one that really breaks my heart was the fact that, as a result of the war, she lost her father, she lost her mother, she lost her brother in the war. And in the beginning we were made to believe that it was she and her sister-in-law. Yeah, they did survive. It was just the two of them left. Later down, when we get there, you see why I said we were made to believe. So it was just her and her sister-in-law. There was no one else. So because of the trauma, she suffered injuries as well. She suffered injuries to her head. Because of the trauma, her brain now developed a personality called calf. And the literally meaning of, yeah, calf, I hope I'm pronouncing that one well. So I tried to find the pronunciation, I couldn't. But yes, just a calf. Yes, let's just call it calf. Is the literally meaning of that in Arabic means fear. So our fear became personified. If you are someone, if you guys, you've read on it, or you've watched even movies that relates with personality disorders, where people create, where you create your subconsciousness creates a personality disorder to protect you in a way because of the trauma that you suffered, to protect you in a way because of the trauma that you suffered. But yeah, in this case, that happened, but in later time, we'll talk about that as we go on. But if for calf became a fear personified. Oh my god. It became a fear and it became personified. And you know what fear could be like? Calf was cold, he was sarcastic, he showed that a fear, he portrayed that fear, he made us see the things, the horrors of the horrors. And in a way, even though he tortured her mentally, because he took on the personality of a man, he took on a male personality, he was a male, the personality, it was a male personality. Even though he took that, in a way, I found it that he became something that pushed her to the limit. That, I think, that's what fear does. Sometimes it makes you cower, and there are times where it just pushes you to your limit, to the point where you are like, you know what, I've had enough, I can't do this anymore. And before you know it, you break out. And what calf does is that she had an agreement with calf, this subconsciousness that she created, that it won't hunt her during the daytime when she's working with patients, trying to save sick people, casualties of war. But when it's just her left alone in the dark, where there is no one else, it's just her all by herself, that is when calf hunts her in the dark. He hunts her dreams, he hunts her everything about her. And because of the extent of the war, and because she had the heavily pregnant sister-in-law, and also the guilt, she had survivor's guilt. That's another theme that we're exploring: grief and survivor's guilt. Because she survived, her brother didn't survive, her mom didn't survive, her father too didn't survive. Everyone she knew, she loved, all of her friends, none of them survived. So she had survivor's guilt. Ordinarily, everyone else, other people were finding a way out of Syria, through illegal routes, finding themselves in refugee camps, trying to find their way to Germany. If you watch all these documentaries where people from their war-torn countries, and how they will go on sea, and how we hear stories of how some of them even got lost in the sea, their boat capsized and they drowned, that kind of route. So it was what they were doing that. But she could have done that, but because of the grief that she was feeling, and because of survivor's guilt, that why should she survive, and also the fact that if for any reason at all she left, then who would take care of the patient? Who will take care of the patient at the hospital? I mentioned earlier that she was an 18-year-old pharmacy student that ended up having to carry out operations on people. Imagine how bad that situation it was, for that to be the case, for her to step up like that. And CAF will show her the horrors of the horrors, the worst of the things that can happen, the worst things that are our imagination. These are all our imagination, this is our subconsciousness. But this subconsciousness was creating scenarios of the worst things that could happen, taunting her with that fear. And in the inside, you would, when you first start to read that book, when you first start in the first chapter, Carl seems like this cold, wicked, mean person. But when you go down a little bit, when you continue to read, you see that it is Carl's way of healing her. When you watch movies, or you read books about you read books about personality disorders, that I think I have forgotten the acronym, you realize that there are two things that these disorders, these personalities, that the subconsciousness creates. One thing, the first one is to help you forget. One, there are two I've noticed over time from research. So I'm not saying that that's what it is, but from what I've observed from books and little things that I've read, that I've seen, there are majorly two things that your subconsciousness of that personality, depending on, there are some people that have as much as 6 to 5 personalities that their subconsciousness will create. But one of the two major things that the subconsciousness does is to block out the memory of that trauma. So it is a way of protecting you, for you to not remember. And two, there is another one that pushes you in a way, so much so that it pushes you almost out of the zone. I don't know if that makes sense. It pushes you in a way that it pushes you beyond limit. It taunts you. It becomes the thing that haunts and taunts you. And when you come across people like that, at first you would think that personality is the wicked or is the mean one. But in the end, what that personality is genuinely trying to do in a way is just to heal you. It sounds odd and it sounds like it doesn't make sense, but that is how it feels like in my mind. And that is the way it is with calf. All of these things, all of this scenario that calf was contorting, was bringing to her head, was just to make her leave Syria, because she didn't want to leave. One, because of survivor's guilt. Why would she leave Syria? Why should she leave Syria? And in a way, I wasn't there, but looking at Salama in her head, in a way, I feel like she was waiting for death. There was nothing to live for, really. Technically, the only reason why she was leaving was because of her sister-in-law, her brother's wife, who doubles as her best friend, and who is heavily pregnant. That was the only person she was leaving for. And when her brother and her father were about to be arrested, they made that promise that she was going to take care of the mother and the best friend, the brother, I think Aziz, or wow, I can't remember. I can't believe I've forgotten his name. But her brother made that promise that, come what may, that the moment she sees that the world begins to get too tough or is beginning to get too much, that she will find a way to get her out, to get both the mother and his wife, who also doubles as Salama's best friend. That's Leila. Leila is Salama's best friend. And so, in the course of the war, her mother died. She also got injured, but she survived. But her mother didn't survive. So the guilt of surviving, and also the guilt of, not fulfilling the promise she made to her father and her brother, and also the grief of losing her father, her mother, and her brother, all of those compound together created calf. And she now decided. And also, ordinarily, the best thing that what you would think of in that situation would have been to leave the country, no matter how, no matter, even though it's by illegal means. And the routes aren't safe, your safety isn't guaranteed, but like, something is better than nothing, nothing at all, you get. And so, and calf what calf did what calf does was to taunt her, make her see the worst scenarios possible, in a bid to just force her to find resolution to leave Syria, to leave the country at that moment. But because she was so down in grief, survivor's guilt, that was all I was feeling in the first half of the chapter. Grief. Like, so much grief that I could, at some point, it felt like I could stretch my hand and I could touch her from that feeling of grief. And I loved the way the author explored grief and that survivor's guilt. Because ordinarily, when I read most historical fiction, grief is one theme or one emotion that they explore so much so that you as a reader, you are feeling it. If you're a very, very emotional person, or you're someone who cries easily, you will find yourself really tearing, you find yourself grieving for the characters, you will find yourself doing that. But one of the things that they are not really explored, probably explored on the surface, is also survivor's guilt. And I loved the way she explored it, because it is actually, that is actually how it is. You know, when you saw, when you for example have, you know, you hear incidents, people, accident victims, where they survived and the other person they were with didn't survive, and you will see how they cannot even be grateful for being, for surviving. They cannot find it in them to be grateful or to be thankful for the fact that, oh, I survived. Rather, they just feel grief. They are laden by grief and survivor's guilt. And that part comes, it goes, and it comes. And another theme that was explored in that part is that love, finding love in the midst of chaos and destruction. I think it was, that was one of the most ironic picture in all of the book. It felt so ironic. It felt really, 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 really ironic. Most times when I read, I feel like I keep talking about historical fictions. It's like I feel like I keep comparing them to each other, but yeah, pardon me. Most times when I read about books, or this is in I read about this genre, when love is being portrayed, it's never really in a romantic feeling, like in a romantic aspect. It's probably most times in sisterly parental love, but love, in finding love in the midst of this kind of destruction. And it was it made so much sense. Ordinarily, the way she tricked love, yeah, let me use the word tricked, or inserted the theme of love in that story, you would almost want to be like, really, is that what, is that the next feeling, or should that be an emotion they should be able to feel when the, you know, the whole world is crashing, everything around them is crumbling. There is no guarantee that they would witness the, you know, they will witness the second day, or the next day, or the next month, or the next week, because one moment a bomb is dropping, and if the soldiers, the Syrian soldiers, find you, literally, even as being a doctor sef, if they find you administering drug, they'll say you are treating rebels, you know, that treating rebels, so you become a target. They torture you, they kill you, you are in prison. So there was really nothing to be hopeful for, or, you know, nothing that should warrant you the feeling of, or the emotions of love to even germinate. But the way she inserted love, and this is one of the reasons why especially girls, I don't know for guys, I know more for girls, because I relate well with that. I'm a girl, I relate well with that, and most girl readers, is while women will always, the a hill they will always die on is fictional men that are written by women, well written. Not, I'm not talking about smutty, you know, even the smutty ones that feel like dark romance. Fictional men, how they go all out. This is, I think I found myself praying, genuinely praying at some point for this kind of love, the type of love Kinan. Kinan, that's the male, the other main character, the male character. He was introduced to us just a little after the first few chapters. He was reintroduced to us. He is the male, or the love interest, Salama's love interest. And at some point, I found myself, I had to close the book a little, and I found myself genuinely praying, not even wishing or praying for that type of love, that type of love that was patient. You know, they explored intimacy in a way that wasn't physical, but that was strong. Like finding love and support in the face of such destruction, the world is destroying. And it wasn't the type of love that you'll be like, what's this, it doesn't make sense. It was the type of love that you needed in that kind of, in that type of time, or in that time, in that kind of seasons, or in that kind of environment where you need support. At first they really denied, they were really struggling against it. They didn't want to act on it, because technically, who would want to fall in love when, there is no hope? of seeing the person the next day. There is no hope, there is no guarantee. It's different if you guys were lovers or you guys were together before the whole war broke out. But when you guys, there is no hope. There is no guarantee of your safety, that you see the next day, you see the next week, you see the next month. And we see what love genuinely means, or how love really should mean. How love really should mean. No, no, it was just pure. It wasn't transactional. It was pure. It was intentional. It was supporting. It held. It was hopeful. The kind of love that was hopeful. The kind of love that was pure. The kind of love that was intentional. The kind of love that showed support. Like, throughout their courting, or should I call it dating, before they eventually got married, they didn't even hold hands once. They didn't hold hands once, but you couldn't tell. And the way she portrays love, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, I cannot explain it. There's this particular part that struck me the most, where she was portraying love in terms of colors. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm a poet. I'm someone who loves poems. In fact, I delight in it. I delight in poems, and of I've been able to find poems on love that, and the poet will capture love in such beautiful, ethereal, unimaginable, out of this world manner. But no one has ever captured love in terms of colors before. And imagine describing your love for someone in colors. It was just beautiful. And you guys, I don't know how to explain it. I really wish there is enough, or there is words that captures this type of feelings and emotion, this type of love that you will see or you would experience through a book or through a movie, and you just sit down and just get lost. Those kind of things that you just get lost in the type of love. And what even makes it so beautiful and really ironic is because of the environment they were in at that time when that was happening. Imagine being in such an environment of, I know I've said that over and over again, but being in that space and still experiencing this type of love. They were all each other had, and they supported, and they were there for each other, and it was just going, just being really intentional. And the ironic thing too, or yes, should I call it ironic, or the coincidental thing, was that before the war broke out, Kinan and Salama were already arranged to be on a blind date. The day they were supposed to meet for the blind date, they had to postpone the blind date because of, I know, the beginning of the war, when the war began to look really serious, and it stopped being a peaceful protest, and it was beginning to scale out into a full-blown war. They were supposed to have met, to have the blind date. If you're familiar with Islamic or Arabic ways, they do this a lot. Like, not necessarily arranged marriage, but families that know each other. Our daughter is good, she's a kinikon kinikon, and our son too is a very good boy. He has a bright future. He studied this, he studied that. And both families we meet, they do it a lot in India too. So most Arabic or Islamic nations, they really do this. It's very common. It's not an uncommon thing. So that was what was supposed to happen. And it was, and the play of faith, it wasn't exactly mentioned or termed, or spoken out, or written out. But I loved how it was subtle. Or maybe it's just me that saw it like that, because I'm a believer of faith, and I'm someone who believes in soulmate. Some people might argue and might not believe in it, or believe that that doesn't work, but I am of a strong opinion that soulmates exist. And I'm also a believer of faith, that, because as for some, I believe that, oh, there is one person for you, that there is always someone for you. And in the advent that, oh, the supposed someone that, okay, that you believed was for you, that you felt like was your soulmate, maybe dies or something, because that's the argument some people make, that, so okay, what if that person that you the belief was your soulmate, what if that person dies? Do you is there the is the, does that mean there isn't any chance? I also believe in second chance mates too, but that, I don't want to digress, that's not a topic for today. But I'm a believer of soulmates and faith, and faith connecting two people who are meant to be together. It doesn't mean that they won't have their issues, or that, oh, they are perfect together, or or everything is going to be rosy. It's just two people whose souls connect in ways that are undeniable. And when their souls connect, or when their minds connect, or when their lives intertwine in that manner, come what may, no matter what issues they face, it is easy to face them, or to come or to go over it. They just, I don't know how to explain it, but that's just my belief. And I think maybe it's because I'm of that philosophy, should I call it philosophy, or I'm of that belief. That was why I saw it as faith. Someone else reading it might not see it or think of it that, oh, this is faith. But I believed, or it seemed to me, that looked like faith to me. So they were, if things had worked out well, because you would read, as you were reading Salama's story, where she kept alternating from reality to fantasy. She was kept mentioning the what ifs, that there was, if the war hadn't broken out, that there was a high probability that they would have gotten married, because they had similar interests. They connected. When they began to get to know each other, they really connected, and found out that they had similar likes, similar dislikes. They loved similar things. They were just really similar people. And Kinan's mother really liked Salama, and Salama's mother, from according to, would have loved Kinan as well. They just felt like kin. So you could see how she kept alternating before they eventually, settled down to be together. You could see how she kept alternating from reality and, the what is that, oh, if this hadn't happened, maybe this would have happened, maybe that would have happened, maybe one thing would have, we could have been together. We might have been married by now. They would have been this, they would have been that. So if that was fate, in fact, that's the only explanation. And having had their first counter or encounter, or their first opportunity of meeting being snatched and taken away from them, and meeting each other again in the face of that war and destruction, that I don't think there is any other description other than faith. There goes a lot goes into how they met, how they found their way with each other, how they equally settled, came to terms with the fact that they had feelings for each other. They didn't want to deny that. Even if one, the worst happened, they still wanted to be together. When that happened, a lot of things went down, and we will not be able to go into it. You guys, the most jaw dropping part of the book, and a huge spoiler. I dropped when I realized this, when I read this part, you guys, for like 10 minutes, I was not all right. I was not all right. I was not all right. I didn't, I could not get myself. Earlier I mentioned that for personality disorders, there are majorly two things that they do for you when your subconsciousness, when it creates a personality. One, major times, most times, often times, what that personality does is to shield you and protect you from that trauma. You will not remember it, no matter how hard, until there is a catalyst, like a really forceful catalyst. It could be something you didn't expect. Sometimes it could be an accident sef that would just push you into that process of remembering. But that personality, what that personality does is shields you. It shields you completely. You are totally oblivious to the trauma. You forgot. In fact, there's probability that you will not remember that you went through a trauma. And there are some that do know that, yeah, they went through a trauma, they just cannot remember. You know, I mentioned it earlier, and that calf, the kind of personality that calf was, is the type that fights and defends you one way or the other. It could be in a harsh manner. It's going to be mean. It's going to be harsh and and taunt you. But what that personality really wants to do is just to push you to your limits to healing. Do you know that the second personality that Salama created was Layla's sister-in-law. Apparently, when we're reading the book, in fact, that was what the author made us believe, that Layla was present. But it turns out that Layla had died 5 months ago. She went to the supermarket, and a bomb was thrown to the supermarket, and Layla died. Even while talking about it, I feel teary. I feel quite teary. And Salamat had been living with Layla, living and talking about Layla like the two of them were living together. She talked, we talked about how she didn't want to leave Syria because of her guilt. But the only reason why she decided, when after Kafar taunted her that does she want Layla to die, like, does he want Leila to die the way her mother died, the way her father died, the way her brother died? Even though she wasn't able to keep her promise to her brother and her father about keeping her mother safe, that she should at least be able to keep her promise to keep Leila safe. And Leila was heavily pregnant, was 7 months pregnant at that time. Apparently, Leila had died 5 months earlier, like about 5 months after the war and protest started. So this was like a year into the war, a year into the full-blown war. Her and Leila had lived for like 5 months together. Leila went to the grocery store, and in the story, when Salama was explaining the story at the beginning, Salama explained the story in a terms, she was like, oh, Leila went to the store, but Leila was the only one who survived. But that was what Salama explained at the beginning of the story. So we really didn't know. Not knowing that it was our subconsciousness that was blocking that trauma, and made her believe. She believed, her subconsciousness decided to go with the fact that, oh, Leila didn't die, like, she didn't accept Leila's death. So it was later that I now realized some little nuances, like, you see Salama warming cans of food, and Leila will not eat. It will just be only Salama eating. Leila was not sleeping in the room. Leila was sleeping in the sitting room, but Salama was the only one who kept going inside to sleep. And on few occasions when Kenan, no, not few, in fact, after they became close, Kenan always walks her to the house, as a man, to protect her, that his heart cannot take it. Let him just see that she's safe. Each time Kenan comes, and Salama would like to introduce Kenan to Leila. For one reason or the other, Leila would not show up. Like, she's inside the house, but maybe it could be like she the narrative will be tell us that, oh, she's tired, one thing, and no one really thought about it until she dropped that bomb that Leila was actually dead. Leila has been dead 5 months prior, but because that trauma was so hard, hit her really, really hard. It hit her really, really hard. So she refused. Her subconsciousness refused to accept. Her subconsciousness that created another personality, this time Layla, full as Layla, and they were living and eating in her mind, not knowing that she was eating alone, she was sleeping alone, she was living alone. So how do we find out that Layla was the subconsciousness, was that Leila was the subconsciousness that Salama's mind created. After herself and Kenan had gotten married and they decided to move in together, in the midst of the chaos, Kenan realized that, oh, he heard her talking alone in the room and no one was answering. And he went to meet her, knocked on the door that, oh, who are you talking to? Is everything all right? And as hijabis, they were hijabis, when hijabi sisters, when they wear their hijabs, they, unless the male, they are not allowed to see a female without a male rather, without their head covered, unless the person is family, is their brother, their father, or their husband. And Salama was trying to shield Layla that, oh no, you can't see Layla, her hijab is off, she's not covering her head. And Kinan was now looking like, there is no one here, you are not talking to anyone. Ah, you guys, I feel like the way I'm talking about it, I'm not doing enough justice to this story. It's not me. It's not explaining it enough. I was not okay for the rest of the day, because when that happens, that just explains deep and extreme trauma, deep extreme trauma, and I just felt heartbroken for Leila. My heart broke in pieces for her, and she broke down and she was crying. I was like, for 5 months you've been sleeping alone, eating alone, in the midst of that chaos, and you now developed a personality that was with you in the house. I mean, that kind of being so lost in that mental state, that is far from reality. Ah, my goodness. This is one of the reasons why psychology interests and blows my mind a lot. It stretches the limits of human emotions and human feelings. It stretches it so far. All of these things will seem like myth until you see someone that is going through it. And in this part of the world, they will not even believe you. They'll just say you are crazy, that you are mad, or you are insane. No one, it's not really, it's not explored, or it's not researched enough in this part of the world, in this part, or like other developed countries who really treat it, who, there are different type of disorders that they really treat and work on it, and there are extensive research about it. It's one of the reasons why psychology, it blows my mind. In fact, anytime you're talking about psychology, I'm sat. When it comes to my mind, or when it just enters my mind, I read research, I look for papers just about psychology. And psychology is so beautiful that it reveals to you the extent of the extent of how stretchy the human mind can get, how stretchy it can get. Imagine that kind of situation, how you create a whole personality. You guys, I don't think I'm being I'm being expansive enough. Like for calf now, calf, when they were describing, when when as the narrative was going and the author gave us a full description according to Layla's words, like if you could picture Calf in your head as a human being. She talked about his height, the clothes he wore, his facial structure. That is how far the human mind can go as a result of trauma. And this is one of the reasons why this book made so much mad sense to me. And it really made an impact, or it imprinted on me, because being able to explore this kind of themes, this kind of emotions, this kind of, because they do really happen. You can't go through things like this and be all right. It's not, but you can, maybe as time goes on, with time, with help, with medical help, you find yourself, you are able to heal. But making it seem like your life is normal, it's just wrong. Sometimes we read documentaries, or we watch documentaries of soldiers that came back from the world war, and how their lives were turned out different, how they ended up being completely different people entirely. Men that were sweet, were cool, were sweethearts, will come back from war. They're seeing things, they have deep anger and temperamental issues. The smallest sound, it sets them off. All of those things, and they seem fictional. They seem fictional. Oh, like, oh, someone concocted it, but these were lives that were lived. These were realities that happen as a result of the trauma and the war that people face. To be honest, I really hope no one goes through trauma, especially war torn kind of traumas, kind of trauma that faces, that plagues countries so much so that it tears the father away from the mother away from the daughter, wife away from the husband, the mother. It's so scary. It's scary, it's heartbreaking. It makes you really sad, and that makes you really sad about all these kind of things. And when we watch all this news, CNN news or Al Jazeera news, and you see all these things that are happening, you are drawn more into reality. They don't seem so far away. Apparently, this author Zofa, I think I was reading some of her interviews where she said that one of the reasons why she wrote the book was because a lot of people had no idea. A lot of people had no idea the impact or what was going on. Most information were surface level information. What was really going on, what is really happening, a lot of people don't know because you cannot see it. There's no way to even publicalize it. There's no way to see it. Is it when there is no you are still scrambling for food. Everywhere has been made desolate. Everywhere you have be you there's no assurance that you will see the end of that day. So how would you be there are no there aren't enough devices or media or mediums rather to show the world or to show people that, oh, this is what we are going through. And when little is even shown, people are not coming to your aid. No one is coming to your aid. And when they even when people are coming sef, is either to join hands with the government that is against you, or they are coming to take advantage of the situation. And the last thing that I really would love to talk about, because this is already gone long, is hope. Hope in the face of chaos. ah this is one theme, and one topic, or one belief that I've found or encountered in all of this type of books that I've read, and it has transcended into my life in a way. I've taken a leaf out of these books, pun intended. I've taken a leaf out of these books, and it has helped me and to translate this hope into my life, that in the midst of, and thank God for having God. Thank God for having God, who is my hope, or who makes it easy for someone to have hope. Because these people being in this type of situation, this is the last place, or the last scenario or environment where you should have hope. If you are depressed, if you are hopeless, if you have nothing to live for, if you just live every day waiting for a missile or a bomb, or for you to be shot dead by a soldier, it is more than enough. You don't have father, you don't have mother, you don't have brother, nobody, is just you. And there is no guarantee sef that you yourself you won't die before. So it's enough for you not to feel hopeful. It's enough for you not to have hope. But the hope Canaan, especially Canaan, the hope he had in Syria, and the patriotic gosh, the patriotic feeling, the patriotic allegiance, that no, Syria is going to be better, Syria is going to be this, They wanted it makes you it makes even it makes you feel like, oh, things will get better, or that, oh, if there are people like this that still feel patriotic, that their hope hasn't been wrenched out of them as a result of the cruelty of the government. It makes you believe, if you were in that situation, that, oh, okay, maybe there is a chance for us after all, no matter how long, the war might run for. And you see their hope, and you see how they keep having hope, how they keep encouraging themselves, being in such hopeless situation. And you cannot help but be spoken to by that kind of instance. I know it feels fictional, it's fictional, it's a book and all of that, but it speaks to you. It speaks to you that, come on me, if people in war-torn countries, and there are people who were like that too, who found hope, being in that situation. Some survived and some didn't, but still the ability, not even the hope itself, that's not even the issue, but the ability for your mind to be able to conjure positivity like hope in that kind of negative, extreme negative situation. My goodness, I don't know, man. I don't know what word captures it, what word makes it better, what word just encompasses it. And there's just so much. I swear there is so much. I could go on and on and on and on and on and just on. But that just covers and sums it up. And then we see how Kinan and Salama, how she slowly healed, and Kinan's love and encouragement slowly healed her, and they were able to look for money, gather money, and pay someone, and they were able to smuggle themselves out of Syria. From Syria, I think they boarded a boat through the Mediterranean Sea to Italy, and from Italy to Germany, and they were able to find their footings. And I love how oftentimes all these books, they give us a bittersweet ending. This also feels like a bittersweet ending, because but more of sweet than bitter. Bitter because the war is still going on, and there's so much people do not even know, people outside of that world, of that country, that they don't know what's going on. And it makes it bitter, and even you yourself, you still feel guilty that, oh, I was able to escape, I was able to run away, but there are some people that aren't able. But at the same time, you are still hope, you find relief that, oh, okay, there's relief. You don't have to scramble about, scared for your life, worried for yourself, and so on and so forth. And gosh, it just makes me scared. And because oftentimes when you read the history of of developed countries, for example Japan, there are times that I just read Japan, Korea, even China. When you read their histories, how and you see how developed, advanced they are, you read about the war that they went through, especially Japan. Jesus, whenever I read about wars, or I read documentary or even memoirs where people who lived through that wars, where they explained their experiences, and you now look at how Japan is now, how advanced, how everything seems to be working, and you realize that there is no revolution without war. That is just it. There is no revolution. Every country that seems to look like is working, or things are going right there, they've had their times or moments where they fought for that freedom, where they fought for that independence, for that ease of life that they have now. And to be honest, it really scares me. It plants a little fear in my heart that, especially I'm in Nigeria, and a lot is going on in Nigeria, that if Nigeria would work the way we would want it, will it come with a revolution that stems from war? And if that happens, how do we survive? What comes, goes on, what will happen? I won't lie, all of these things, I don't even want to go into that because that sounds really quite, pessimistic. But it's just a thought that came to my mind while I was reading this, that every country that seems to be working or seems to be progressing, or that things all their things seems to work, they've had an history of war, revolution, for them to have gotten to that place, and it's taking decades even for them to rebuild, for them to Syria is still desolate. It's still a refugee. It's a refugee camp. It's not being built yet. Of Was it day before yesterday or 3 days ago? I read that um in Gaza, that because of starvation, that their genes, I can't remember how it was said, that they can't have a normal body weight at least for a long time. Not verbatim, but that was the gist of the tweet. I think it was on Twitter. I can't remember where I read it from, and I just felt so saddened and gosh, it just scares you. It makes you unhappy, but that is the reality of the world. That is the reality. That is how the world has been since the beginning of time. Be it through Stone Age, Ice Age, Guinea Corn Age, there's been war, revolution, and there are people who fought for that revolution to happen. Lives were lost, lives were bloods were sacrificed, babies, children, pregnant people, men, women, boys, girls were sacrificed for that revolution to be born. I just, oh my gosh. It just, when you read books, it just gets you thinking. It gets all these emotions and all of this, and it just does that for you. But in a positive manner, I hope all turns out well. I really do. I cannot. Ever since I read it, I can't just help. And I realize when I watch or come across all these pageantry shows, and they ask them that what do they want, and when they are saying word peace, and I'll find it, that's just tacky or cheeky, or cringy, that any small thing you ask word peace. I now understand what it means to actually desire or wish for world peace. And now it's become a wish now, for a part of my wish, that, oh yeah, what do you desire? What do you hope for? And if you ask me to now, that is what I'll say, world peace. Because then I never really used to understand what they were, when they said they will say world peace, they want world peace. It didn't really used to make sense to me. It just felt like, oh, something you would say, or something you cram when you cram for an exam, and then everybody knows that, oh, this is a question that will most definitely come out. Just know that for you to be on the, you cannot get it wrong when you mention this answer. That was how it used to seem to me. But now I realize how shallow and immature I was for me to have thought of things that way. But now that I see things better, I've grown up and I've seen, watched, read, I can imagine praying, wishing, hoping for world peace. So to conclude this today's episode, I just want to read a should I call it, yeah, a phrase from the book, and I think that's where the title comes out from. It says, every lemon will bring forth a child, and the lemons will never die out. Every lemon will bring forth a child, and the lemons will never die out. The title of the book says, as long as the lemon grows. So it just gives a symbolic feel that, true, as long as, at least that's my interpretation of it, that as long as, no matter, oh no, not as long as, no matter how long the war goes on, how long the fight goes on, that in as much that people, they are Syrians, let me make it more personal this time around, that there is always hope. It goes back to hope. And if you read the book, I feel like Kenan depicts this phrase so well. Kenan depicts this phrase. So I think the reason why she used lemon tree is because lemon, I think lemon is native to Syria. Like it's a very popular, should I call it, yeah, a fruit that it's popular or it's native to Syria. And so it makes it symbolic that every lemon will bring forth a child and the lemons will never die out. So in as much as the lemon never dies out, there is always hope. So in as much as the lemon tree is still growing, come what may, no matter how, no matter how long it runs, no matter how disastrous the destruction is, in as much as the lemon tree grows, there is hope, and the hope is bright. And I think also that lemon literally has, should I call it duration, or it stands, or like is not easily should I say easily destroyed? Is that the that's yeah, that's the word that comes close, the most that comes close. This book it took a lot and gave me a lot. I will not lie, and I really hope that I was able to do justice to it, because I don't think I can. I really cannot. I cannot from my words alone. I cannot from my words alone. I really cannot. I feel anyone who really genuinely maybe found my talking about it interesting and really wants to enjoy it will have to read it. More really. Thank God for good authors, man. Thank God for good authors. I'm grateful for good authors, especially authors that where their stories are as a result of reality, or they are born out of reality. In fact, I believe a lot of stories, no matter how odd your imagination might seem, that oftentimes there's a hint or a bit of reality to every story, no matter how much of a fiction it might seem like. But authors who birth their stories from reality and show us a bit, because I doubt we can ever really know the extent, but who show us a bit of history, and just to help us to remember these people, help us to remember how far the world or the nation, whatever nation it is, that's been spoken about in particular, how far it's come, how far they've been able to, fight for things, for the peace or the tranquility they might be experiencing. I'm grateful for authors like that. And to cap it all, it was just good storytelling. There was no big drama. In fact, I wouldn't even call it a novel. Yeah, a novel is what you call it, but me, what I'll call it is a storybook. It was like someone is sitting down and narrating story, and that was how it was. It was easy. Even the psychological part that might have seemed difficult to grasp, maybe to be in another setting, in another type of book, came so easily. You will not find it hard at all to understand. Thank God for good books. Thank God for good authors. Anyways, I feel down in a bit, because I almost shed a tear or two when I realized that Leila wasn't real. And talking about it just seems to almost downing me in a bit, but anyways, you guys, that's it for today. I'm so glad I was able to talk about a book today. We haven't done that in a while, and I've been is it that I find something else to talk about and postpone reviewing a book, but I'm glad I was able to talk about this. And hopefully next episode, if I not find something else that I want to talk about more than the book thief, and most likely said the book thief is still going to take on this type of atmosphere, because they're so similar. But yeah, maybe when I'm done with the book thief, we'll be able to explore books in more different genres, so it's not always so somber. And you know you guys, you get it. All right, you guys, we've joined the curtain for today. Thank you, bye.